Welcome to our presentation on the verb ich hab and articles. Ich hab is the verb that means I have. It's the verb to have, and it's a really common verb in Pennsylvania Dutch, slightly irregular. Let's take a look at it. Here are all the forms of ich hab. Now, if you haven't downloaded the handout, I'd recommend that you do that first. That way you'll have all the information in front of you in addition to the information being here on the screen. We'll go through the pronunciation of all these forms individually. Ich hab means I have. We've seen ich already, it means I. And hab is the part that means have. The hop almost sounds like the English word hop, as in hop up and down. Ich hab, I have. Du hast means you have. You singular. Du means you when talking to one person. Hast means have, the form that matches the du. Du hast, you have. Notice that in Dutch, SCH makes the sound sh. So, du hast. It looks like it's a complicated thing, SCH, but it's just the sound sh. Du hast. Hat means he has. Hat. She has is sie hat. If you've ever studied Standard German, you might be tempted to pronounce this word like sie with a z sound instead of an s sound, and that's not Pennsylvania Dutch, right? And that's a big difference between Standard German and Pennsylvania Dutch. These words that start with an s in Pennsylvania Dutch are pronounced like an s. Sie hat. She has. Es hat. It has. Once again, the little word es means it, and hat means has. Es hat. Ma hen means we have. Ma hen. And I recommend you say them after me. Ma hen. Dia hent means you have. Dia means you plural. And the form of have that matches it is hent. Dia hent. Now this, in grammar terms, we call that you plural the second person plural. And it's the form that changes the most between different dialects in Pennsylvania Dutch. So if you know someone who speaks Pennsylvania Dutch and they say, oh, we don't say that, we say ihr hen, or we say dir het, those are all good Pennsylvania Dutch as well. I'm basing this on speakers I know who use this particular form. Dia hent. Dia hent. They have is sie hen. Sie means they. You'll notice that sie also means she, like we've pointed out in a different lecture. It depends on the context. In this case, the form of the verb to have tells you. Sie hat means she has. I know it's she has because hat goes with the singular, whereas sie hen means they have, and I know it's plural because hen is plural. Sie hen. Sie hen. Okay, those are all the forms of the verb to have. Often very common verbs like ich bin and ich hab are irregular because if a verb isn't common, then the irregularities tend to get smoothed out and the verbs tend to become regular. And it's only the really common verbs that tend to remain irregular. So this is one of the reasons why ich hab is a bit irregular. It's so common. Now let's talk about grammatical gender and articles. Articles is grammatical language for the words the and or un. They indicate whether something is kind of definite, like the book, or whether it's kind of any old thing, like a book. Now, every single noun in Dutch has grammatical gender. A noun is a thing word, like a cup or a table or a window. And it can be a thing, maybe it's a thing you can't touch, but it's still like a concrete thing, like or an abstract thing, like an idea. An idea is also a noun. And every Dutch noun has grammatical gender. That means it's the gender of the word doesn't depend upon whether it's actually masculine or feminine, whether it's capable of reproduction. There's no connection between those things. The gender is just a traditional way of referring to the way that word behaves. So every Dutch noun has grammatical gender, and those genders are masculine, feminine, or neuter. Now, the gender of the noun determines which definite article, now definite article is just fancy grammar language for the. Which form of the you use depends upon the grammatical gender. Now, in Dutch, there are three forms of the word the. The first one, the masculine one, is da. The feminine one is die. And the neuter one is s. So Dutch has three words for the one word in English, the. So it's got three words for the definite article, da, die, and s. We see examples here. So the word boo, which means boy, happens to be masculine. And so that when you say the boy, you say da boo, because boo is its grammatical gender is masculine. You say da boo. Let's take the word katz, though. Katz means a cat, and that word happens to be feminine grammatically. So when you say the cat, you say die Katz. You use the word die rather than da because Katz is feminine, and you use the feminine definite article, die Katz. Let's look at our final example here of a neuter noun, which is Mädel. Mädel means a girl. And you'll notice here that grammatical gender and natural gender, they're not the same thing, right? So Mädel, obviously girls are females, and you'd expect them to be feminine, and they would be a natural gender, but in grammatical gender, they actually happen to be what we call neuter. And so the definite article is s. So we shouldn't confuse natural gender with grammatical gender. Grammatical gender is just a word happens to be one or the other. We tend to use these words, masculine, feminine, or neuters, in heritage tradition to refer to those genders, and they determine which definite article they take. So because Mädel is neuter, the definite article is s. That's Mädel. Now, very often this s gets abbreviated just a s sound. So you might not say s Mädel, you might say Smädel, as if the s were the start of the word. Smädel. We, of course, do similar things in English when we're speaking quickly. So the definite article, da, die, and s. All three words mean the. Da is masculine, die is feminine, s is neuter. Now the good news is that in the plural, the article is always die. So da, like a da boo, when that word becomes plural, you use die. So anytime it's more than one of them, regardless of the grammatical gender of the noun, the definite article, the word for the, becomes die. So if I were to give the plural of da boo, which means the boy, if I said the boys, I would say die boeven. Die would be the word the. Die Katz, the plural is die Katze, the cats. As Mädel, the girl, the plural would be die Maid, the girls. In the plural, the article always changes to die, regardless of the grammatical gender. Now, the best way to try and learn grammatical gender is to learn it when you learn the noun itself. You should learn the definite article with the noun. So, for example, if you were to learn the word for girl, you would learn es Mädel, maid. Now, the way I've set it up here, the singular comes first, so es Mädel means the girl. And then the second form, maid, that's the plural. Now, I don't put in the D maid, the plural definite article, the girls, because if you start putting in the plural, the D, your connection with the definite article actually gets a bit weakened because you're saying es Mädel, D maid, and you've got these two definite articles when you're learning it. I think that makes it a lot harder. So the best way to learn a noun is just es Mädel, maid. That means the girl, girls. Es Mädel, maid. When you learn a noun, you learn the definite article with it. Now, definite articles, they're not the most important thing in the language, right? If you were in doubt, just give everything a D. Don't worry about da and s. Just give every single noun D. Everybody would understand you. You don't need to stress about these things, right? If you said die Mädel for the girl, maybe it's not grammatically 100% correct because it should be es Mädel. Nobody's going to mind. It's just a slight inaccuracy, right? So if in doubt, just use D. But you might as well aim for getting it right if you can. And so learn the definite article with the noun. Es Mädel, maid. Now, the indefinite article, that's a fancy grammar term for what in English we call a or on, like an apple, or I saw a girl. So the indefinite article in Dutch, there's only one, and it's the word en, spelled E-N. En. That doesn't change based upon grammatical gender, right? So always stays the same. It's always the word en. Doesn't matter whether it's masculine, feminine, or neuter. Always the same one, en. Now, the final tricky thing here about articles is that when you have the word net in a sentence, you might remember net means not. And you're combining it with the indefinite article en. Those two words kind of combine to create a new word. It doesn't technically come from the combination, it's its own word, but we can imagine it as combining it to create a new word, which is can. So you don't say, let's say you say, I do not see a girl, right? The not a girl part. You don't say net en Mädel. You don't say net en. Instead, you would say ken Mädel. And you could translate it as not a girl. Ken basically means not a. Often in a sentence, you might say not any, something along those lines. You don't always translate it back into English as not a. If you said, I don't see any books, the word for a book is or I don't see any book. The word for a book is ein Buch. But you would say, I don't see, or I see kein Buch. I see not a book, or I don't see any book. Ken can mean kind of not any as well as not a. So you never say net en. Instead of that, you say ken. Once again, this is kind of a little bit advanced. If you said net en, that would be fine. But let's say in proper Dutch, you would say ken. Ken. Ken is the word you use instead of net en. Remember, net means not, en means a. So you don't say not a. Instead, you use a special word, ken. Okay, let's see some just concrete examples, combining some of our words and the verb to have. Die Katz hat ein Name. This means the cat has a name. Nome means name. Die Katz means the cat. Katz happens to be feminine, so its definite article is die. An means a. Die Katz hat ein Name. The cat has a name. Sentence structure, just like English. Our next example, der Hund hat kein Name. Here's an example where we don't say net en. This sentence means the dog, Hund is a dog. The dog this, in more straightforward English, this means the dog does not have a name. If we were to translate it kind of a bit more word for word, it would be like, the dog has no name, something like that. Remember, you don't say net en, so you wouldn't say de hond hat net en noma. The dog has not a name. You don't say that. Instead, you say de hond hat ken noma. The dog does not have a name, or the dog has no name, or the dog doesn't have any name. Any of those translations in English. In Dutch, de hond hat ken noma. Let's look at questions. You'll remember from the Ich bin lecture that to make a question, you put the verb at the front. Hast du es Buch? That means, do you have the book? Buch means book. Do you have the book? Notice in English we have to use this little helping verb, do. Do you have the book? In Dutch, you can just put the verb have at the front. Hast du es Buch? Like really literally that means, have you the book? You don't need to use that little helping verb do, right? You just put the verb at the front. Hast du es Buch? Do you have the book? Ja, ich hab's Buch. Yes, I have the book. Ja, ich hab's Buch. Now, when you do have net in a sentence, like in this one here, the sentence is Mehendi bicha net. That means we do not have the books. Notice you don't use ken here because it's not the indefinite article an, Instead, it's the definite article d. And so you can use net with d. It's not a combination of net and n. So you use net. Net tends to go at the end of these sentences. You could put it after the hen. We could say mehen net di bicha. You could say that. Perhaps a little bit more common would be mehen di bicha net. That little word not tends to drift to the end of these kinds of sentences. Mehen di bicha net. We do not have the books. A bit more literally in word order, we have the books not. Mehen di bicha net. Okay, let's take a look at some of vocabulary. Remember, we try and learn the article, the definite article in the singular, with the noun. Remember, in the plural, which is the second form, it'd always be d. The definite article would always be d. So dabu, buva, means boy. Dabu would mean the boy. Buva would mean boys. Di buva would mean the boys. Da hund, hund. This means a dog. Notice in Dutch, some words don't have a different plural. Every word forms plural slightly differently. You just have to learn the plural when you learn the noun. So in the case of hund, the plural is just like the singular. Da hund, hund. Da noma, noma is the word for name. Although this is spelled with the double A sound, the aw sound, I would say most speakers I know say it as a kind of an O sound. Da noma, noma, name. Da noma, noma, name. You can see it's a masculine word because it takes the da there in the singular. Die vroeg, vroa, means a question. Die vroeg would mean the question. Vroa means questions. Die vroa would mean the questions. This is kind of a pretty formal Pennsylvania Dutch. In kind of everyday conversation, the word for question is usually just the word question. So you could say, for example, ich habe een question. I have a question. Ich habe een question. I have a question. But there is a Pennsylvania Dutch word for it. Lots of people know it. Die vroeg, vroa, question. The word for answer is die antwoord, antwoorden. Die antwoord, antwoorden. Die antwoord would mean the answer, and antwoorden means answers. You notice that in Dutch, often a T and D will alternate. So die antwoord, it ends with a T, but in the plural, die antwoorden, those T's have become D's. Die Katz, Katze means cat. Die Katz would mean the cat. Katze would be cats. Die Katz, Katze. Die Katz, Katze. The word for book is es Buch, Bücher. Es Buch, Bücher. Remember the ER sound is ah. So at the end of there, it's not, that plural there, it's not Bücher or something like that. It's definitely not, well, I don't even want to say the word, but it's definitely not with a ch sound. I'll tell you that much. So es Buch, Bücher. So if you were to say, I have the books, you would say, ich hab die Bücher. Ich hab die Bücher. I have the books. Remember the article when the plural is always die. Ich hab die Bücher. I have the books. Es Mädel, maid means girl. Es Mädel would mean the girl. Maid means girls. Es Mädel, maid. Es Mädel, maid. Here are some useful adjective words. My means my. My. You could probably now from our vocabulary, you might know if somebody said, my name is James. My name is James. That would mean my name is James. My means my. The word for your, as in if you own something, is die. Die. Remember that EI makes the sound I in Dutch. Die. I'll ask you a question. Was ist dein Name? Was ist dein Name? Remember that was means what. Was ist dein Name? Sei means his. Sei. Sei. Can you figure out what this sentence means? Des ist sei Hund. Des ist sei Hund. Remember that the word des means this from our lecture on Ich bin. Des ist sei Hund. Hopefully you understood that that means this is his dog. Hund means dog. Des ist sei Hund. Ihre means her. Ihre. 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 Can you figure out what this means? Ist Sel Ihre Katz? Ist Sel Ihre Katz? Remember that Sel means that from the Ich bin lecture. And Katz means cat. So what does that sentence mean? Ist Sel Ihre Katz? Ist Sel Ihre Katz? Hopefully you were able to get that that means, is that her cat? Ist Sel Ihre Katz? Okay, and let's learn a standard way of saying goodbye. Kind of a traditional way is to say mach's gut. Mach's gut. That literally means make it good. Mach's gut. Mach's gut. How you say goodbye. Mach's gut. Well, that's our lecture on the important verb ich hab, I have. and some vocabulary that talks mostly about pets as it works out, but gives us some words that we can practice with. There's a link on YouTube to an online practice exercise that corrects itself. I really recommend you do that and get a little bit of practice on using the verb ich hab and making some simple sentences with it. And I hope you've enjoyed our talk today. Mach's gut.